All winter, they had been freezing to the bone. A layer had barely scraped through it. It took till summer until she shook her sickness. It wasn't as if they could ever afford to have a healer to care for them. Staying warm would always be cheaper, and they couldn't even afford that. But this year would be different. Or so they had thought, spirits high as spring broke. And here they were, in the middle of summer and hardly a handful of coppers to their name. The same old jobs paying less than nothing, rent and even the cheapest of food still eating through what little they did earn. They could not eat any cheaper. They were barely getting the meat you absolutely needed as it was. Eating only bread and porridge would see them just as sick as freezing in winter. Maybe they could find some cheap heaven oak bark and a kind healer to help put them to sleep. It was a nice thought, but about as likely as the king himself deciding you were his long-lost cousin and in need of a castle. And what are the chances of that? He sighed, as he stared at the only decent luck he's seen in a month. A half-full bottle of some sort of distilled alcohol. He wanted to take it to a tavern to enjoy, but they would never let him keep it. So he had found a shielded corner, and he just enjoyed the cheap and rough bottle of clear liquid. Maybe it was a cleaning liquid instead. He wouldn't be able to tell the difference. I just have to make some more money, but how? The jobs he had been able to find had been completely terrible. For years he had been able to make a little sweeping and cleaning the streets. Sometimes he got to collect ash and take it away, but that was only when Tala was too sick to walk the rounds. There must be something else, something harder, less safe. If it was easy, it would be taken already. The city was drowning in able hands with nothing to do. He couldn't leave for a keep either, and they would never take in his family as well. They would be more of a burden than he could ever carry for such a place. And it was not as if they would be struggling for candidates. Must make money, not any good at fighting, don't have any fancy equipment like those lazy rich pricks. That leaves shitty work and dangerous work, and even the shitty work is gone. Something dangerous then. Can't be a guard or an escort. Ain't no way I'm turning mercenary, and I cannot go away for too long. I have to be back for winter with the money. Honey. I'll go get honey. It even rhymed with honey. It had to pay well. And who cares if you don't survive? He'd just freeze to death in winter anyway. How do you even become a honey hunter? He asked himself, glancing down at the bottle. He could have sworn that was a lot more full just a moment ago. No matter. He had a plan. It was going to work, and they would be able to eat a nice big Tirok steak before turning in for the winter with the heating on and someone to stoke the fireplace. Yeah. This was a great idea. He fucking had this. Let's go. You, hey. Hi, oh, you there. Yes, look at me, thank you. Where'd you become a honey harvester? Are you quite sure? Yes. Do I look like I haven't been thinking? I want to go make money. Lots and lots of money. Yeah, right. Well, why don't you go check the landing fields? The season should be starting around now, I think. Surely someone wants an extra hand. Thank you, stranger. I will go there. Thank you. Thank you. Hano said to himself, as he went off with a bottle to his name and a dream. He was going to be rich, or he was going to die trying. Or whatever. Really now? You want to sign up for what exactly? Whatever you need. I don't give a fuck. As long as it pays. And you can hold a spear? Never had a spear. I can hold a stick just fine. And are you drunk often? Nope, first time in years. Can't afford to get drunk. Your wings, do they work? Just fine. I'll get where you need me to go. I used to sweep the streets, you know. Street sweeper. I see. The woman at the little impromptu sign-up desk looked him up and down. Well, why don't you just sign right here? A piece of paper was slid forward, a quill at the ready. This couldn't be easier. Right, yes. One moment. He grasped the feather, tip already wet. He did drip a bit on the strange parchment. He wasn't actually sure he'd ever had to sign anything before. People just put a scribble at the bottom of the page. That didn't seem hard. As gently as he could, he put the tip to the page, then did a wild flurry. He might have done a bit too much. If in doubt, fake confidence. There. When do we leave? Tomorrow, the woman replied, taking the page and having a look, furrowing her brow a little. Radishki? What? What is your name? Oh, Hano. Hello, he replied, sticking his hand out to shake. How rude of him. She took it gingerly and shook it, looking up at him, glancing at the page a few times before putting it down. Right. Welcome aboard, Hano. I'm sure we will make great use of you. Fuck. Oh, you done it this time, Hano. Stupid fucking bottle. This was all its fault. He didn't know where they were going. He didn't know what he was supposed to do when they got there. He never even talked with someone who did this for a living before. He was going to die. He was absolutely going to die. But he'd signed a contract to work the whole expedition, and he would never in his wildest dreams be able to afford breaking it. He'd fallen asleep against a tree on the landing field in his drunken stupor, and when he woke back up, they were already going aloft. 2 red dragons laden down with equipment and crew. He didn't know what half of it was, and he had absolutely no clue who anyone was. The woman he signed with was nowhere to be found either. He hadn't even flown with a dragon for at least a decade. He had never been this far away from the city at all. It was all just a bit much. He had felt a knot of despair forming in his stomach as the edge of the island hovered into view, and the knot turned to terror as they did not stop. They were leaving the island. Where were they going? Then the dragons tilted into a shallow dive, and Hano wanted to scream his lungs out. I am going to die. If I don't, my mum is going to kill me. I didn't even say goodbye. Shit. They don't know where I am. They are going to think I got stabbed in the back alley, aren't they? I'm a really shit husband, aren't I? Why am I this stupid? So, take this. When we tell you to, you walk that way with us until we find the hive. When we do, we will split out, then sit and wait for the signal, then run at it as fast as you can. Do not under any circumstance use your wings. Don't flap them, don't shuffle them, just don't, okay? The older, gruff-looking dragonette said to him. The man spoke with authority, and that would do for Hano. Oh, okay, he replied, along with a quick nod, gingerly taking the odd-looking serrated spear. Cut off as much yellow sticky stuff as you can into that sack you got, and run back as fast as you fucking can. Don't try to fly. I know it will be tempting, but they can hear the wings. Just run until you are back here. Too slow, we leave you. Get stung, you're dead. You get paid by the kilo. Gonna need at least half a kilo to cover your expenses. Expenses? Hano replied, bewildered. The man tilted his head a little as he looked at the rookie. You've got to be joking. What, did you just sign up completely drunk or what? Yes? Fucking hell. Right. You've been flown here by a dragon. They fed you, given you a place to sleep. All that, right? Yeah. They didn't do that for free. They take the first half kilo you get, and half of everything after it. Gotta make sure you aren't a loss if you come back empty-handed, you know? I take it you can't pay for that, can you? No. Hano did not remember anything about that being on the contract. Well, best get some then, else you wind up in a debtor's prison. Good luck. You're gonna need it, I think. Thanks, Hano replied, an emptiness welling up inside him. He looked at the stick with the blade on the end. He supposed it was the closest thing to a proper spear he would ever hold. It wasn't even his. If he dropped it, they would take it out of his pay, they said. Oh, and one trick. Have a little when you are in there. Just a little. It'll help you get back out ass unpunctured, the older soldier added. But it's as expensive as silver, isn't it? Sure. Probably the only chance you'll ever get to have some, so do it. At least you'll die having tried. Right, thanks. So, what's the signal? Just wait for us to start running, man, okay? We're gonna smoke them out. Smoke them out? Smoke. Big fires. Bugs don't like smoke. It makes them run away. It does? Dude, the fuck are you doing here? I don't know. Right. Well, okay then. So here's what the plan is. That way, around 2 kilometers, there is a big beehive we found from the skies. We've been here many times before. So you just go here and farm for honey? Hunt. We are honey hunters. We hunt, okay? I'm trying to be nice here. Sorry. So we smoke them out? Yes. The others are building big fires. When the wind is right, the dragons will light the fires, maybe a bit of the forest too, and once the hives are being smoked out nicely, we run in, grab whatever we can carry and run out. I see. That sounds pretty straightforward. Hano tried in false confidence, wishing for all the world it would just have been so complicated that he wouldn't understand. Maybe they would have let him stay back here then. Sword fighting is easy too, just stab the bastard. They won't stay away forever, and as you run, you might run into them. Now, there are 2 kinds of bees you need to care about. There's the worker bees. Small, fairly harmless. Just leave them alone and you will be fine. And warrior bees. Now, warriors are about this big, the random man said, gesturing with his arms for something roughly the size of a 5-year-old. They will kill you. Don't bother trying to drop the honey, they will kill you anyway. Just run, as fast as you can. Maybe try to fend them off if you can, but more will be coming. If you stop, they will swarm you, and that's that then. Killing 1 or 2 will only make them mad. Do it if you really have to, but if you do, well, you'll earn a lot of new friends back here. 'Cause all them bees are going to be coming for you now, so the others might make it away. Oh, okay. Thank you. That sounded a lot like the sort of thing they would not have told him if they wanted him to die here. That's positive. Good even. Very good. They think you have a chance. Once you make it back to the dragons, try not to run through the fire, okay? Run around it. The honey is flammable and you'll probably have it all over yourself. It's a shitty way to die. I know how fire works, Hano tried, accompanied by a weak laugh. It didn't really work. Could have fooled me, little shit. But yes, if you make it back to the dragons, stand your ground and fight. We stay for as long as we can, and when everyone is back, or the hive sends a swarm, we run like hell. The dragons are faster than the bees, so just hang on and don't fall off, okay? Okay, I think. Calador bless you. You're gonna fucking need it. Okay, so far so good. Just keep calm. One step at a time, don't make a noise. They are going to kill you, Hano muttered to himself, as he slowly stalked through the underbrush on foot. Thick, acrid smoke hung in the air from the fires behind them, the wind carrying the precious smoke onwards towards the hive. Shut up, rookie. Sorry. The guy who had tried to shush him shot him a glare, which Hano took to mean that the only reason he didn't get stabbed was the amount of noise he might make. It's okay. Don't die. Alea will forgive you. In a couple years. At least you'll live that long. Paid by the kilo. Honey was worth its weight in silver. What was it the contract said? Half if I can get a few kilos. There would have to be hundreds of silver. How many silver in a kilo again? Maybe it would be thousands of silver. That would be enough to get us through the winter. Maybe more too if we're careful. That would be amazing. We could get a healer for Alea. Maybe I could even bribe someone to give me a proper job. Either way, we need the money. I'm here now. Just get a few kilos. Come on, Hano. You can do this. Then a twig snapped over to his right, and he swung around the bladed spear, levelled at the noise as his heart skipped a beat and he held his breath. Then he saw another dragonette stand up again, brushing herself off and carrying on deeper inwards. Hano's knees went soft and he nearly fell where he stood. No, I can't. I can't do any of this. I just want to go back to collecting trash. He could feel tears welling up. He couldn't cry either. The others would shut him up for good. Lips and hands quivering, he turned back ahead and carried on. Slow and steady, as quiet as he could. The smoke was stinging his eyes, and he could not see more than a few dozen meters at most, even this far from the fire. Then he heard it. The buzzing. It was deep and steady, menacing and alien, yet it didn't sound angry or panicked. At least not yet. He had heard plenty of flies and other insects flying around in his time. The flies were unbearable on a hot summer's day when you were shoveling shit. But those were a nuisance. This buzzing. He could feel it just as much as he heard it. They kept on advancing, the buzzing growing louder and much too quickly. As it did, he could start making out all the different pitches. It wasn't a bee at all. It was hundreds, maybe thousands. Soon, the one who had shushed him earlier set down into a crouch and stopped. Hano did as well. He didn't want to get even one step closer. I need to run into that? No way, I can't do that. One sting, is it? There are so many. They all simply sat and waited. He knew any moment the signal would come, whatever it was. He would just start running when the others did. As he waited, he could hear the buzzing climb up into the sky. Looking up, he even saw a few silhouettes above the tree cover, yellow and black-banded monsters gliding unnaturally along on those strange vibrating wings. They are leaving. The smoke is driving them away. It's working, he thought to himself, happy for the first time. Maybe it would all be fine. It wasn't that many bees, but surely most of them flew away from the fire rather than towards it. He would just stick close, do what the others did. He would be fine. It would all be just fine. Then he tensed. The hunter in front of him was holding his palm up, signaling to hold. He hadn't done that before. Were they about to start running? But the buzzing hadn't stopped. Then he dropped his hand, rose to his feet and started moving. Not at a sprint, but a low jog, moving as quietly as he could. Hano stood frozen for but a moment, watching in shock. But they aren't gone yet, he thought to himself, before he thought back to his 5 minutes of training. If you're late, we're going without you. Shit, he cursed under his breath, getting up and starting to run after the other hunter. Surely he knew what he was doing. The crunch, crunch, crunch as he trampled through the foliage betrayed that he himself did not. The hunter in front of him coming to a stop and turning around, levelling his spear at Hano. He didn't say anything, but his expression spoke volumes. The man raised his spear as if to throw, clearly taking aim. Hano ducked his head, trying to keep tears back, nodded and turned left a bit, towards where he had been told to go as they spread out. If he thinks I will get him killed, what are my chances? He almost snivelled, as the seasoned hunter once more started stalking forwards at pace. If Hano ran back now, he was going to be made a slave for gods knew how long. He had no idea how much he would owe if he didn't bring back at least half a kilo. I'm better off dead then. They would all be gone by the time I get back out. He tried to steel himself, but there was no point. With water welling in his eyes, he set forth. He just ran. He was already behind, and he had no idea how to move silently in the forest. So he just ran forwards, hoping the hive would at least be big and obvious. And it most certainly was. It was further away than he had thought, the buzzing growing ever louder. He couldn't just hear it now, he could feel it. His breath was already growing ragged. He was a street sweeper, not some racer. But there it was. Towering up nearly as high as the beech trees around him was a wall of brown and paper. Not a bee in sight, but he could hear them, feel them. Looking side to side, the squat bulbous structure spread through the forest to either side as far as he could see through the brush. It had to be at least the size of the warden's office, further up the street. Unsure what to do, he looked for any of the other hunters. Maybe a dozen meters to his right he saw one, busy with the blade on his spear, cutting a hole in the wall, like he was sawing through a plank or something. Hano looked down at his spear, then to the papery mass in front of him. He couldn't see any other path in, so through it was. He stepped forwards the last handful of paces. The entire hive was vibrating, the buzzing hum shutting out all else. Almost instinctively, he laid a hand on the wall. It was soft and dry, just like a scrap of parchment. Pushing slightly, it gave, seeming almost flimsy. Looking down at his spear, he now knew what those barbs were for. They weren't barbs at all, it was a saw blade. Taking a step back and waiting for but a moment to say a prayer to Calidor for protection, he plunged the spear in and started sawing frantically. "Be quick, don't be greedy, just be quick," he repeated to himself. As he worked away, the blade made quick work of whatever it was that made up the hive, and before long he had managed to make 2 vertical cuts and 1 across the top. Sticking the blade in from the side, he pried, and the whole slab started to budge. With a crunch and crackle like dry autumn leaves, it came free and fell to the ground. It was at least as thick as his waist, even if that was not saying much. Seemingly made out of hundreds of layers of parchment in strange-looking patterns. Peering inside, he froze. There it was. Sticky yellow stuff. He couldn't believe his eyes. Strange winding plates of whatever it might be, crawling with dozens, if not hundreds of smaller bees, maybe the size of his hand or so. "Workers," he gulped, heart racing in his chest. "It's okay. If you don't hurt them, they won't hurt you, but I have to cut up their home." Taking another half step back, reaching out the spear as far as he could manage holding it by the very end of the haft, he started trying to slowly ease away at a slab of the yellow stuff. Worker bees were still crawling all over it. It was slow and methodical work, but ever so slowly, he managed to cut almost all the way across the slab. Just a bit more and it should fall to the ground. Just a little bit more. His heart was in his throat. Attention set on the worker bees, who did not yet seem to mind much, though some of them were crawling all over the bit of wall he had cut away. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Last bit." With a quick movement he sliced through the last bit and the cone came free, tumbling down the others. Hano winced as he saw workers take flight to get clear. Others were squashed when finally he had reached the ground. He stood absolutely still, expecting his life to be over right then and there, but nothing happened. The workers went about their crawling around, seemingly unbothered. That's okay. Hano took his spear and, as gently as he possibly could, scraped the few workers left of the piece off. A few even clung to the metal as he tried to get them to let go inside the hive once more. They seemed so docile, and certainly not smart. With the cone cleared, he flipped it over onto the grass away from the section of wall he had cut out, removing yet more workers. It was a good-sized piece. He had no idea what it might weigh, but it was quite a bit, he thought. More than enough to not go to prison. As he leaned down to pick it up, he heard a new sound. He had almost grown accustomed to the constant buzzing. Loud enough, he didn't even think he could shout over it. But this was different. The crunching of paper, the gnashing of jaws, the occasional spurts of a bassy buzz far, far closer. Coming from inside. Something was coming. Something big. Fuck. He had what he needed. He was out of there. Kneeling down, he scrambled to get the yellow stuff into his satchel. It was soft and sticky, honey leaking out of it as he grabbed it. The buzzing from inside grew louder. Now the sound of jaws chewing through the soft sticky wax, sending a shiver down Hano's spine as he slung the bag over his shoulder. He rose to his feet, watching in sheer horror as a bug-like head stuck its way out of the hole he had just carved. It didn't fit. It bumped against the sides of his hole, head turning as its massive jaws began chewing away to make room. It had no pupils or even proper eyes, just two big black voids of nothingness. Death had come for him. Scrambling to his feet, he had no thoughts other than just run. Run as far and as fast as he possibly could. Sprinting across the open ground in a mad dash, the world seemed to stand still as he willed himself to go faster. Trees and bushes raced past him in a blur, the buzzing growing and growing and growing, louder and louder. All he could hear, his heartbeat and the buzzing of wings. He let his tears flow freely. It did not matter now. He was dead. One sting was all it would take. He just kept running as fast as he could. Soon his legs were burning like fire, lungs heaving for breath. He could not go on like this. But he remembered the advice of the older hunter earlier. Have some yourself. Like a child, he stuck his whole hand in his mouth, trying to suck and lick it clean. He tasted blood too, but he did not care. The sweet taste, unlike anything he had ever tried. So luxurious. Maybe the last good memory he would ever have. He finally sped a glance behind him. Nothing but trees and bushes. Then, the warrior bee barreled through the branches, pushing them aside as if they were nothing. It was coming straight for him. Only the hand in his mouth kept him from screaming as he tried to run faster, not taking his eyes off it. It was futile. The warrior was barreling towards him like an unstoppable force. Taking the hand from his mouth, he turned around, bracing the spear. Sharp end pointed at the beast. He could hardly see for tears at this point, as he just prayed. The warrior flared, revealing the stinger protruding from his abdomen. It was the length of Hano's forearm, and he just shut his eyes. And with a mighty crash, the beak collided with the spear. The dumb insect not having sensed the danger as it impaled itself through the gut. They were both knocked to the ground, Hano screaming out, certain this was the end. But the stinger missed. Feeling no jolt of pain, Hano opened his eyes to the terrifying sight of the beast's mandibles, gnashing at him mere inches away from his face. He screamed anew, trying to push away from the bee as it tried to grab him with his 6 thin, flailing limbs. One of them caught in his pants and he was wrenched to the side with the strength of a dragon. Hano managed to dig in his feet and kicked off with all the strength he could muster, the cloth ripping apart at the patches as he was freed. The satchel still over his shoulder, he ran once more. As fast as his legs could carry him. They would all be coming for him now. He had killed a warrior. His only chance was the dragons and their fire. He had to make it back. He had to. To his left he saw another hunter also running like the wind, sack over his shoulder, laden with many times more honey than Hano had managed, spear still in hand. Hano did not care if they wanted to leave him. He wasn't going to let them, so he followed the other hunter. He had to know the way back. To Hano, all this forest just looked the same. Together they ran and ran, the smoke getting thicker and thicker as behind him he could hear the whole hive come alive. Even so far away he could hear the angry buzzing. Far, far more terrifying than the drone from before. You can make it. Just keep running. It's okay. The burning in his legs was all but gone. He could breathe properly. It's working. He ran, and he ran, but even honey did not last forever. Soon he could feel the burning return, his breathing growing ragged. Just a bit further, just a bit further. He made it through the forest edge into the vast clearing they had used to prepare. The tall bonfires all but burned down to the ground, thick white smoke still pouring from them. The 2 red dragons standing vigil, eyes trained up on the skies. Hano sped a look behind him, panic setting in once more. Thousands of black dots were climbing into the skies, some close enough to see the yellow bands. He was by no means safe yet. "Move, rookie!" he heard a dragon call out in front of him. Turning to look, he saw an angry-looking red, head pulled back, ready to spew fire, looking right at him. The choke points! He turned left as hard as he could, the dragon letting loose a torrent of flame but a moment later. The heat burned against his back as he made for the relative safety of the dragons and their crew. Other hunters were already there, and more were coming running back one by one, laden with honey. Hano stopped and stared at the skies, not sure how they were ever to escape so many. Looking around, it seemed his concerns were shared. Fuck me, that's a lot of them. It was a damn big hive. Do we just leave the rest while we can? There's only a few who ain't back yet. Did someone kill a warrior or something? Hano did not say anything. He had done everything he could. It wasn't his fault they hadn't taught him any better, or allowed him to come at all. I just want to go home now. Please. We are getting surrounded. All aboard. We are leaving. The woman who had made him sign called out, already atop one of the dragon's backs. Hano scrambled for the nearest one, clambering up the netting onto its side, hooping an arm in tight. He wasn't going to fall off. The dragon was breathing fire in a steady stream, setting the whole clearing alight, adding to the smoke and fire. Rising into the skies, but it was blowing towards the hive, the opposite direction of where they needed to go. Wait! Wait, you fucking bastards! It came from yet another hunter, who was running back just as the red dragon Hano was desperately clutching turned away, tensing up before sprinting to a gallop. A few short bounds and they were airborne, wings beating away unlike what Hano had ever heard before from a dragon of this size. It almost sounded like the beat of a dragonette as they pulled away low and fast, just over the treetops. The trailing hunter took to the skies herself, trying to catch up. Beating for all she was worth, she managed to cling to the dragon's tail as it accelerated away. You fucking bastards! Torto is still back there! And there he shall remain, the dragon answered coldly. Hano watched the anger drain from the woman's face, replaced with apprehension as she turned to look over her shoulder. Back in the clearing, a pair of white dots could be seen emerging from the tree line, possibly waving at them. The skies filled with dots above them as the bees closed in. Hano just stared, not sure what to think. He had made it. By the tip of his tail, he had made it. Some of the others had not. So, 40 silver for the lost spear, 100 silver in expenses, that leaves you with 43 silver to your name. Not bad for a first attempt. The man in front of him had been paid over 200 silver. Thanks, Hano replied solemnly as he received the pouch. It was more money than he had ever made before, yet it felt like so little. So very little indeed. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you rather have some of it in gold? That would not be a problem. No, it's fine. I'll just take this. 4 gold, 3 silver. More money than he'd made this year so far. Less than a good job paid a month. But it had taken him less than a week. He could see why someone would do this, and if he had gotten more. Looking up at the sun and feeling it baking against his skin, he knew. He would never do it again. He would find a better job. Something that could pay for food, and a place that didn't leak when it rained, and fuel to keep it warm in winter. He was still alive, through nothing but luck alone. If he could survive that, he could become a store clerk, maybe a cook somewhere, or even a servant. He wouldn't mind that at all. Anything but honey hunting. He would hug his wife tighter than ever before. After he had stopped apologizing, of course. But for now, he needed a beer. The tale of Hano, the veteran honey hunter's first hunt, as recounted by his comrades, acquaintances, and family. Put to page by Sir Giovanni Giralcino. He would go on to take part in 12 more expeditions before his luck finally ran dry, being eaten alive by a warrior bee 6 years later. The end. Hi, that was a rather grim one, wasn't it? Best keep that one for the older children, Opuma grumbled, paging through to the next story in his new tome, containing Tales from the Land and Cities by Giovanni Geralcino. Mighty bleak business, that honey stuff. Much rather be a beet farmer. Yes, quite. Though I suppose it would not make for much of a story, even with Tom involved.